Bucs fans, Buccaneers preseason football is in the books. It is over. The Buccaneers are now on to Atlanta. Now, they did lose to the Buffalo Bills in week number 3 of the preseason, but it was the Tez Johnson show out there at wide receiver. The 7th round pick out of Oregon absolutely stole the show. I'll give you guys my game reaction, my winners and losers for the final game of the preseason for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, Sunday at 10 o'clock, the Buccaneers began to cut down, finalize their roster all the way down to 53 players. I'll explain who the Buccaneers decide to keep and give my take on who they decide to cut. Also, we got some injury updates and more details regarding Tristan Wirfs' right knee injury. He's off the PUP list, but when do I expect him to come back? And also, what exactly happened with his right knee? I'll explain that whole entire situation. Also, I want to give you guys kind of like a state of the NFC South. All the information you need to know about the Panthers, the Falcons, the Saints before we enter week number 1 of the regular season. We're only 2 Sundays away from that. And lastly, knowing what I know now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their injuries, who's on their roster, I want to give you guys my final Buccaneers record prediction for 2025. Do I still believe that they're a Super Bowl contender with the current state of the team? All that and more on this episode of Fear the Bet. It has been a gloomy and rainy past 2 days here in Tampa Bay. And maybe it's a bit fitting because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming off of a 23-19 loss against the Buffalo Bills to close out the preseason. And also, even more importantly, it is cut down time. The Buccaneers, Sunday after 10 o'clock in the morning, began cutting down their roster to make their final 53-man roster. They have until Tuesday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to finalize their 53-man roster. And they've already done a big number of cuts. Before I get to the cuts, however, I want to talk about the winners and losers from week number 3 in the preseason for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's start off with the losers. So, my biggest loser of the night was safety Shiloh Sanders. And I've said before the season and during training camp, I don't envision him making the 53-man roster. The whole time I've seen him as more of a practice squad guy, but I think his chances of being even on Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad has come to an end. Safety Shiloh Sanders, we know he got ejected from the game against the Buffalo Bills for throwing a punch at tight end Zach Davidson for the Buffalo Bills. Now, Davidson did initiate the conflict. He was pushing him around a bit. But when this is your final chance, possibly your final chance in the NFL to put out film, you have to have better control over your emotions. This is your last opportunity, likely is your last opportunity to put out good film. And this is how you go out. You go out sad. You go out by punching another player in the face, losing your temper and being ejected from the game. It was a horrible look. I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers even decided to bring him back on the practice squad. I think his tenure with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have come to an end. Now, he's a great guy. I got to see him out there in day number 2, day number 3 of training camp. He was the final Tampa Bay Buccaneer player out there signing autographs. He had a huge, crowd of fans around him. He was signing autographs, taking pictures with fans. He stayed maybe like 30 minutes after practice when I got to see him. Really humble guy, man of the people, like I've said before also. But, in my opinion, safety Shiloh Sanders at this point, what does his career path look like? I envision him to be probably more of a content creator than a safety in the NFL. And here he has a big following, so that gives him, a big advantage there. But I don't envision him being picked up by any team, on their 53-man roster. He could sneak on to a practice squad, but he's not an NFL safety, missed tackles, just poor performance, basically invisible besides the QB hit he had against the Tennessee Titans in week number 1. So Shiloh Sanders, his time in Tampa has come to an end. Let's go on to now Elijah Klein. So Elijah Klein, I really like Elijah Klein. He's a very versatile offensive lineman. You can have him really play at any position, even tackle, center, like the Buccaneers have him here. So Elijah Klein, he didn't play bad. He just had a bad snap in quarter 2 to Kyle Trask and kind of just messed up the whole play. He couldn't really have an effective play when he had a bad snap like that. So the reason why, I'm so, tough on him for having this one bad snap is because the Buccaneers don't have Robert Hainsey anymore, who was the center for the past few years. Played a lot post Ryan Jensen injury, and before Graham Barton here came in last year in the first round out of Duke. Robert Hainsey was the starting center for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But now you don't have Hainsey anymore. He went off to the Jacksonville Jaguars with Liam Cohen. Jake Majors, the undrafted free agent out of Texas, the true center. He's a true center. He was cut from the 53-man roster. The Buccaneers cut him. We'll see if the Buccaneers decide to bring him back onto the practice squad at some point. But Elijah Klein, he's very versatile, and the Buccaneers have him as the second string center. If Graham Barton goes down, if something happens with Graham Barton, or if Graham Barton needs to slide over to, for example, left tackle because Charlie Heck is not able to hold his own at that position, Elijah Klein is going to be called, stepped up. He has to step up, next man up, and he has to be able to perform. You can't have bad snaps from Elijah Klein if he's going to be your second string center. So that's why I have him here as one of our losers for the night. All right, wide receiver Cam Johnson. So if you look at wide receiver Cam Johnson in the return game, you could say he's a winner. He had a long, kick return of 57 yards. Biggest kick return of the night. Looked really good there. But he did drop a potential touchdown. He didn't show out too much in the receiving game. Cam Johnson had 5 targets for 2 receptions, 34 yards. He had a drop touchdown pass by Kyle Trask. It would have been a touchdown. He dropped that. Late in the game, Connor Bazelak, that 2-minute drill. Connor Bazelak looked really good. I'll talk about him in a second here. But Connor Bazelak tries to hit him in the back end of the end zone, just a little bit outside of his reach. I don't know if you can really put that on Cam Johnson or not, but overall in the receiving game, Cam Johnson, I would consider him a loser when he needs to show out. The Buccaneers still have him at this point of the recording, still have him on the 53-man roster. We'll see if he continues to stick on or if he lands on the practice squad. But I think he should have had a better outing for himself. And if he would have came down with that touchdown from Kyle Trask and would have found a way to extend himself a little bit more and get that touchdown from Connor Bazelak too, he would have had a 2-touchdown, reception night. And he would have made a good case for himself as to why he should be on the 53-man roster. All right, Trey Palmer, I have him on here because he finally got a chance to play out there, but was invisible, didn't do anything. He had two targets for 1 reception of 13 yards. He's kind of, again, I've talked about him before, kind of a forgotten man in this wide receiver core, and it's just because he's been injured, and when he's been out there, hasn't been producing. Even last year, hasn't produced at the level that you would want him to produce at. All right, so let's go to our winners of the night. Tez Johnson was the absolute winner of the night, even though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came away with a loss. It was the Tez Johnson show out there at wide receiver. Tez Johnson had 8 targets for 8 receptions and 58 receiving yards. Had a touchdown too from Kyle Trask. And when he got that touchdown, he starts running. He does like a little flip, and he does his backflip in the air. He had so much height on that backflip. He showed off his athleticism. This is a guy who, he showed in week number 3 of the preseason. You throw him the ball, you give him the ball, he's going to make every play look like a punt return out there. He's so shifty. He has a lot of short area quickness. He's a guy who ran a slow 4.51, I believe, 4.51 But he's a guy, when he has the pads on, when he's playing out there, his football speed is a lot quicker than his actual speed. So really nice to see Tez Johnson out there. With the injuries, see Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin being out for an extended period of time, Tez Johnson is now going to be able to show what he can do, not just in a return game, but also in the receiving game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's go also to running back position, Josh Williams. So Josh Williams, he had 8 carries for 28 yards. His longest carry was of 11 yards. Not too good in the ground game for Josh Williams, the undrafted free agent of LSU. But in the return game, he did really good for himself. He had 3 kickoff returns for 108 yards. He averaged 36 yards per return, and his longest return was 42 yards. So he did really good out there in the return game. At this point in time, the Buccaneers have not cut him. I'd be really interested to see, do the Buccaneers decide to keep 4 running backs? I initially had the Buccaneers keeping 3 running backs. Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and Sean Tucker, of course. But do the Buccaneers decide to keep 4 running backs with Josh Williams? I remember when Jason Light was on the Pewter Report podcast, he said Josh Williams is going to be one of those guys in the preseason that turns people's heads. Now, we haven't seen him too much out there because of injuries, but we got to see him quite a bit in week number 3, and he definitely was one of the winners of the night. Rookie out of SMU, 5th-round pick, Elijah Roberts. He had his first NFL sack. Now, it's in the preseason, of course, but he looked really good out there as a pass rusher. Now, the Buccaneers they cut Jose Ramirez. He was part of the trying to trim down to 53 men. He was one of the cuts. So I'd be really interested to see if Elijah Klein is one of those players who he has a lot of versatility, has a lot of athleticism. Due to Buccaneers, he's going to primarily be a defensive lineman for the Buccaneers, but he has shown in college too that he can stand up and can rush the quarterback from a standing position. So I like to see, because of the fact that they lost David Walker, they cut Jose Ramirez, we don't know exactly what Chris Braswell is going to bring. Do they have him out there sometimes, standing up and rushing the passer from a standing position rather than being on the defensive line down on the ground? Connor Bazelak looked really good. He had a strong quarter 4 performance, had a really good 2-minute drill performance as well, led to a touchdown. Had a nice about 30 plus yard reception throw to Cam Johnson out there as well. Looked good. He had a touchdown pass. So the Buccaneers have cut Connor Bazelak at this point in time. I'd be interested to see the Buccaneers decide to bring him back on the practice squad. We will see. But the touchdown that he threw in the 2-minute drill was to Garrett Green, who also the Buccaneers at this point in time have not cut. He is the West Virginia University quarterback who converted this offseason to wide receiver. He has a lot of athleticism. He can give you a lot in the return game also. He's trying to, learn the ropes at the wide receiver position. He's doing a pretty decent job for himself. That touchdown he had, he was able to keep his 2 feet in bounds. So that was really nice to see. Also, this is a guy who I've talked about quite a bit now over the past few episodes, Riley Dixon, punter. Todd Bowles, he praised him the day afterwards on Sunday. He said he's happy as hell, that the Buccaneers we have our punter, is what he said. So the Buccaneers really like the veteran Riley Dixon. He has a very strong, booming leg, like I've said before. I think the Buccaneers have finally found their answer at the punter position, and Todd Bowles believes that too. Let's get now to the cuts that happened. Let's talk about that now. Bucs fans, want to know how you can help this channel, Fear the Big, grow and expand? All you have to do is 3 simple things: like, subscribe, and comment. They're quick. They're simple things to do. They're free. And what it does is it helps boost out this content to more Buccaneers fans like yourself. So when YouTube sees you liking, subscribing, and engaging with the content, they boost this content out to more viewers like yourself. So please, if you can, like, subscribe, and comment. That helps me out a lot. And let's get back to the video. We don't want to miss that. The Buccaneers, Sunday after 10 o'clock in the morning, began cutting down their roster to 53 players. And maybe the biggest player that they cut, we just got breaking news right now at the time of this recording, is quarterback Kyle Trask. His time in Tampa has come to an end. This news was broken by Jay Fowler, ESPN on X, Jeremy Fowler. He says the Bucs plan to release quarterback Kyle Trask. Per source, he will revert to IR with a shoulder issue, then work out a settlement or release soon and look for a new team. Tampa's longtime QB2 on the move. So Kyle Trask, he was a 2nd-round pick out of Florida, sat behind Tom Brady, competed with Baker Mayfield when Baker Mayfield was just brought in, didn't win that QB1 position, sat behind Baker Mayfield also. Now his time in Tampa has come to an end. Quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, the veteran, is going to be the new QB2 behind Baker Mayfield. The Buccaneers look to only keep 2 because they also cut Connor Bazelak. I expect Connor Bazelak now to come onto the practice squad. But Kyle Trask, he never had an opportunity to show, a regular season NFL game with a starting, offensive line and starting wide receivers, what he can do in the NFL. But, you can make that argument. But when he got the chance to play out there in a preseason game in the preseason, he never showed that he was an NFL starting caliber wide receiver. If you put Baker Mayfield out there competing with, even though he will have a 2nd string offensive line and 2nd string wide receivers, you put Baker Mayfield out there against 2nd, 3rd string wide receivers, he's going to look better than Tom Brady. That he's going to be at least at the GOAT's caliber, So Teddy Bridgewater is the new QB2 in Tampa. Connor Bazelak, Kyle Trask on the move. I expect Bazelak likely to come back now on the practice squad. Let's go now to the running back position. Owen Wright was cut by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Jace McClellan was cut as well. Owen Wright had the very good game in week number 1 against the Tennessee Titans on the ground. He'd be a guy that I expect the Buccaneers to bring back. At this point in time, also, Josh Williams, like we talked about him. Do the Buccaneers decide to keep 4 running backs on this team? We will see. All right, at the wide receiver position, so far, the Buccaneers have only cut Raheem Jarrett, Jacob Harris, who is a big 6'5" wide receiver, wore number 30, looked pretty weird out there. Dennis Houston. So those are 3 wide receivers that they've cut so far. Right now, the Buccaneers have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Buka, Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Ryan Miller. Those are the 6 ones who are safe to make, of course, a 53-man roster, I would say. Garrett Green, Cameron Johnson, and Trey Palmer. Do the Buccaneers keep 7? And if they do, those 3 players will be in the competition to be that final, guy, to be the final wide receiver 7 on this roster. Remember, Chris Godwin's going to be on the 53-man roster, but he's not going to play anytime soon. We'll see when he plays exactly. I would go here with, I was Jason Light, I would go with Garrett Green, maybe Cameron Johnson if you want another guy at the return position, but Garrett Green can also produce at the return, a kickoff return as well, or punt return. All right, so at tight end position, the Buccaneers cut Tanner Towla. He has been the tight end 5 on this team for the past few seasons. He was on the practice squad as well last year. At the offensive line position, the Buccaneers have cut Ben Scott. He was a rookie. The Buccaneers also cut Jake Majors. He was the undrafted free agent out of Texas, a center. Sua Opeta was the guy who the Buccaneers brought in from the Philadelphia Eagles last offseason. He got injured in the night practice, tore his ACL. Came back recently to the Buccaneers, was activated. Didn't, maybe he's a guy who the Buccaneers decided to bring back on the practice squad, didn't show out there enough to warrant a spot on the 53-man roster. Buccaneers also cut Luke Haggard, Tyler McClellan, who was the undrafted free agent from the Los Angeles Chargers, Raekwon O'Neal, who was a versatile offensive lineman, and Garrett Greenfield. He went out early on with, he retired from the NFL. So let's go now to the defensive line position. This was a big one, Desmond Watson. So if you watched the Frozen Empire podcast, I brought up Desmond Watson with Louis. And, I mentioned, does Desmond Watson even warrant a spot? He hasn't practiced all along. He's had the weight issue, hasn't been able to get down to the weight that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers want him at. The desired weight they have for him. Does he even deserve a spot on the practice squad? Does he deserve a spot even on the NFL list? But it looks like that answer has been solved. No, the Buccaneers decide no. He just maybe didn't take the opportunity serious enough. If you told me that I need to cut down, for example, 20 pounds by the end of the week, I'm going to do everything I can to cut down 20 pounds, So this is a thing that, maybe the Buccaneers talk to him, and maybe next year they'll bring him back as, one of the players on a 90-man roster if he's in better condition, in better shape. But he wasn't able to do anything out there. So, it wouldn't be cool if, he gets on the practice squad or stays on NFL, stays with the team in some capacity, and other guys who have been, fighting tooth and nail to make this team or to be on the practice squad don't get the opportunity that he was given. All right, Mike Green also was cut by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Eric Banks, Devon J. Thomas, Nash, Hut Masher. Those guys were cut on the defensive line. At the edge position, David Walker, we know he went out with a torn ACL. Jose Ramirez, edge rusher, he was cut also. Had a phenomenal game last offseason in the preseason against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's had some snaps during the regular season, has never been able to really produce. We'll see if he's a guy who the Buccaneers decide to bring back on the practice squad. Warren Peoples Jr. was also cut at the edge rusher position. All right, so linebacker, inside linebacker, the Buccaneers cut Anthony Walker Jr. He was the veteran who the Buccaneers brought in this offseason from the Miami Dolphins. It kind of did like a swap. KJ Britt went over to the Dolphins. Anthony Walker Jr. came over to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Outside of OTAs, he was never healthy, was never able to produce. He's an aging veteran also, entering his 30s. He's in his 30s. Buccaneers also, I think the bigger cut was to Nick Jackson. So Nick Jackson was a guy who I really liked. He was the linebacker out of Iowa, the undrafted free agent. He had 2 sacks. He had the interception as well, the one-handed interception as well. So Greg Auman reports that the Buccaneers have decided to keep John Bullock, the inside linebacker, undrafted free agent out of Nebraska. So he led the team in special teams tackles. So he was better in special teams than Nick Jackson. So it seems like that's why Nick Jackson was released. But if it was up to me, Nick Jackson would have been the guy. Now I like John Bullock too, but I just like Nick Jackson a bit more. I would have had him on the 53-man roster. But I get it when it comes to special teams, and you need to be able to produce on special teams as well. So the Buccaneers have Levante David, Savasi Dennis, Deion Jones, a veteran who Todd Bowles really likes, and John Bullock as well. Antonio Group Jr. has not been cut at this point in time, but I would expect the Buccaneers only to keep 4 linebackers at this time. All right, at the cornerback position as of now, the Buccaneers have cut Bryce Hall, Trey Avery as well. They're going to cut a few other players as well at that position. Bryce Hall, he's a guy who I like. I would maybe the Buccaneers keep him on the practice squad and bring him back in some capacity, but I like the Buccaneers corners. I think this year is different than past years. I think they're really deep at the cornerback position. Jamel Dean, Zach McCollum, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, Kendall Vildor, who's going to produce at special teams. That's why he was brought in, but now we can see also with his play in the preseason and training camp, he can produce on the defense as well. So we'll see there who the Buccaneers decide to keep. They still have Josh Hayes, Tyreek Thunderberg, Roman Brody, Javion Farr as well. All right, so at the safety position, the Buccaneers, they lost J.J. Roberts. He had the leg injury. Peter Report was the first to break that news. He's out for the season. They cut Shallow Sanders. They cut Will Brooks. So at this point in time, at the point of recording, of course, Antoine Winfield Jr. is still on the team. Tyke Smith. Christian Izien has the oblique injury. We'll see. It's a pain tolerance issue. Todd Bowles says we'll see if he's ready for week number 1 of the regular season. Kayvon Merriweather is still on this team, and Rashad Wisdom. I'm interested to see, do the Buccaneers keep 5 safeties or 4? If they only keep 4, is it going to be Merriweather or Wisdom? I would lean more Merriweather, but Rashad Wisdom can play nickel, so we'll see what happens there. Those were the cuts so far. The Buccaneers have until Tuesday at 4 o'clock to finalize the roster. But the biggest so far, Desmond Watson. He didn't produce, but in terms of story, Desmond Watson, Shiloh Sanders. But the biggest cut of this whole cut down process was to Kyle Trask, who I hope he gets a chance to go out there and go to another team and produce. Maybe he gets an opportunity if the quarterback goes down to come in and show the NFL what he can do. He was just never able to produce even in the preseason enough that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were willing to keep him over veteran Teddy Bridgewater. Let's get now to our 3 headlines. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best offensive tackles, if not the best offensive tackle in the league. This guy's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He started off his career at right tackle, protecting the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, helping the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl in his rookie season out of Iowa. He was an all-pro at right tackle. Post Donovan Smith, the Buccaneers shift him all the way over to the left side of the offensive line, and he has been an all-pro and Pro Bowler at that left tackle position, being the perfect bodyguard, I would say, to Baker Mayfield's blind side. Now, we know this offseason he's been dealing with a right knee injury. Problem is, we don't know exactly what has been going on with his right knee. And now we got some clarification on what exactly has been going on. I'm going to explain that here in a moment. But recently, the Buccaneers have been gaining, a lot of encouraging signs for some of their star players who have been injured. We talked last week about Jalen McMillan, and last week you talked about the fact that in that week 2 preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Teddy Bridgewater threw that hospital ball. He had that leaping. Jalen McMillan jumped in the air, had that leaping reception, got hit in the back, fell really awkwardly on his upper back, neck area. What happened was he has a severe neck strain. He's going to be placed on IR. But luckily, according to Adam Schefter, the plan is he'll be returned at some point post bye week. So the Buccaneers have their bye week in week number 9. So maybe week 10, week 11 is a possible, expectation when we can see him back on the football field. The Buccaneers were going to rely on him heavily, especially with Chris Godwin being out, because he was going to be that outside wide receiver opposite to Mike Evans, with Emeka Buka in the inside playing that Chris Godwin slot role. Also recently, talking about Chris Godwin Jr., he was activated off the PUP list, and Tristan Wirfs, left tackle, was activated off the PUP list. Both of these guys, when it comes Tuesday, 4 o'clock, that is the deadline to finalize your 53-man roster. Both of these guys are going to count against a 53-man roster. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to play right away. That doesn't mean they're going to play week number 1. Doesn't mean they're going to play week number 2. I believe Tristan Wirfs is going to come back to the football field far before Chris Godwin Jr. does, but we'll see how that all progresses. But the Buccaneers also received another encouraging sign when it comes to Tristan Wirfs' injury, because Peter Report posted this on their X account pre-game, week number 3 against the Buffalo Bills. He was out there signing autographs for Bucs fans, and he didn't have crutches at his side. He didn't have crutches. He had no assistance, helping him walk around. Just, he was out there with, he did have a sleeve on his right knee, but no more crutches for the superstar left tackle Tristan Wirfs here. Really encouraging also when he was walking away after signing the autograph for Bucs fans. I didn't see a noticeable limp at all. He looked like he was walking normally. So that's really nice to see there also. So really good sign there. Just another sign, just another clue that he may be returning closer or sooner than many might have expected. So there was a recent article written in the Tampa Bay Times by John Romano. The title is "Inclusive Test Led to Tristan Wirfs Having Knee Surgery Later Than Hoped." It goes on to say here, the Bucs tackle complained about increasing pain, but initial MRIs did not reveal the extent of damage to his knee until late June. So he had to get a few, different diagnoses here. He had to get a second opinion. So the Tampa Bay Times has a bit of a paywall there. So Joe Bucs fan, those guys over there, they included all the important details from this article. Talking about the Tristan Wirfs knee injury. And it says here, Wirfs said he's a maybe to return for week 3 of the regular season, but his recovery timetable after July's knee surgery remains a mystery. So week 3, this is Wirfs saying it himself, week 3 is a likely possibility here. So week 3 is that home opener. The Buccaneers are on the road week number 1 against the Atlanta Falcons. They're on the road week number 2 against the Houston Texans. But week number 3 is that home opener. That's the white creamsicle game. It's going to look really, really nice. The Buccaneers have the New York Jets. Head coach Aaron Glenn, new head coach for the New York Jets. Justin Fields, new quarterback 1 for the New York Jets, coming into Tampa. Remember, week 4 is that Philadelphia Eagles game. The Super Bowl reigning champions are going to come into Tampa. And it'll be a good thing if you can't play week 3, at least maybe week 4 becomes even a more likely scenario that he could return in week number 4. The Buccaneers, this article here regarding the Buccaneers left tackle, it continues to state here, it's definitely not going to be week 2, Wirfs said. The biggest thing is how I'm progressing over the next few weeks. I still haven't done anything on the field. I haven't done a dynamic warm-up yet. So a few things there. So he says no week number 2. So week number 1, week number 2, you can write that off. He's not going to return early on unless something, drastic happens, drastic changes here. He won't return until possibly week number 3. But also he points out he hasn't even done a warm-up yet. So you could be in shape, but there's a difference between being in shape and being in football shape. So, he's acknowledging that there himself also. Because it was a bone injury, it needs time to heal. So now we know exactly what has been going on right there. This has been a bone injury to Tristan Wirfs' right knee. And more specifically, it's a cartilage issue with his right knee as well. So it sounds like Wirfs' cartilage has eroded. Wirfs had a bone marrow aspirate concentrate, a BMAC procedure that involves using bone marrow injected into damaged cartilage to stimulate natural healing, Romano wrote. So cartilage issue, a bone injury to Tristan Wirfs' right knee. All these bone issues, these cartilage issues, they get me a bit, worried when it comes to, these types of injuries, because remember how that Ryan Jensen, how Ryan Jensen's career ended with those cartilage issues and the rest of the problems that he had with his knees and his ACL and MCL, that whole scenario there. But, Tristan Wirfs, he's a young guy. And, I hope that the procedure went, smooth, was completely effective, because, it'll be really hard to see a guy, so young, he's in his mid-20s, begin to have that knee continue to erode, continue to not be ever 100%. They do deadlifts and they work out. He has to use squat every time, in his stance. It puts a lot of pressure. He's a big guy too, over 310, 320 pounds, if not more. So, anytime it comes to a cartilage, bone injury, these type of injuries, they have me a bit worried. And maybe that's why, we don't know, but maybe, the Buccaneers have been silent because of that. But luckily, week 3 now is a possibility. He's on the PUP list. He's going to be on the 53-man roster. when it comes time to finalize the roster Tuesday at 4 o'clock. So really good there. So we're likely going to have Tristan Wirfs return to the football field far before Chris Godwin Jr. does. But, when does Chris Godwin Jr. return? It's going to be week 6, week 5, week 7. When is it going to be week 8? When is going to be that timetable for Chris Godwin to return? We'll see. But really encouraging here that Tristan Wirfs doesn't need crutches anymore. He was activated recently off the PUP list. And he said himself, week 3 is a maybe. Week 3 is a likely return, but not, guaranteed for the superstar left tackle. So let's get to our next headline. We're just 2 short Sundays away. Mark your calendars until the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kick off the regular season against the Atlanta Falcons. What I want to do here is kind of give you guys a state of the NFC South, a quick state of the NFC South, kind of give you guys all the information you need to know about the other 3 teams, the Panthers, the Saints, the Falcons, in this division before week number 1 arrives, because it's going to arrive pretty soon. Let's start off with the Carolina Panthers. Last year, the Carolina Panthers went 5-12. This is Dave Canales' second year as the head coach of that football program. Dave Canales, former offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. This offseason, the Panthers extended their cornerback, their starting corner, J.C. Horn, to a 4-year, $100 million deal. They also signed to a 1-year deal veteran wide receiver Hunter Renfrow to help out their wide receiver core a bit. Their wide receiver looks good. Core looks pretty good. Not as good as Tampa Bay Buccaneers any mean, but Bryce Young have some weapons at his disposal. They drafted in the first round big body wide receiver Ted McMillan out of Arizona. Second round, they drafted edge rusher Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. In the 4th round, they drafted running back Trevor Etienne out of Georgia. That name sounds familiar. It's because he's the brother of Travis Etienne with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Carolina Panthers went 0-3 in the preseason. I'll give you guys some intake about what happened there. Week number 1, they faced the Cleveland Browns. That was a big Shedeur Sanders game. They lost 30-10 in that game there. Bryce Young, he went 4 for 6, 58 yards, 1 touchdown. On that 1 touchdown, it was pretty nice. The pocket was collapsing. He escaped to the right side, was on the run, was able to find his wide receiver in the back end of the end zone. So good there. Not encouraging when you see your pocket collapse the way it did. That was kind of like a theme. Also going to see that in week 2 of the preseason for him. He got sacked by, I believe, Will Anderson. But if his offensive line, he's getting more weapons. He has Xavier Legette, who the Panthers drafted last year, Ted McMillan, Adam Thielen, veteran wide receiver, formerly with the Minnesota Vikings, Hunter Renfrow now, J.C. Horn Jr., who they drafted this year too. So he has, a bit of, few better weapons at his disposal, but the offensive line needs to do their job and protect Bryce Young if he's ever going to have true success with the Carolina Panthers. All right, so in that game also, the Browns kind of did this double reverse end around, and undrafted free agent rookie corner Corey Thornton, he saw what was going on. He recognized it pretty early on. He went, behind the line of scrimmage. He grabs a wide receiver who's doing the end around. He picks him up and he slammed him. So it was pretty impressive. Big tackle for loss there. We're talking about the defense. Defense had 3 sacks for the Carolina Panthers, 0 interceptions. So they come out with the loss, but the defense did pretty good for themselves with the 3 sacks there. Week 2, the Panthers faced the Texans. They lost that game as well, 20-3. Bryce Young, his offensive line couldn't really protect him. He went 0 for 2, 0 yards. He had a sack, a loss for 8 yards there. Ted McMillan, 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards, of course. The best performing wide receiver for the Panthers in week 2 was Bryce Tremaine. So he's a wide receiver out of Stanford. He had 3 receptions for 4 targets, 46 yards. His longest reception was of 23 yards. Defense had 1 sack, 0 interceptions, and they allowed 109 rushing yards for 28 carries. So the defense struggled, the offense struggled. 23 loss for the Panthers. Week 3, they faced the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was a 19-10, a bit of a closer loss, you can say. Bryce Young did not play. They did rush for 171 yards on 35 carries, so good rushing game for the Panthers in week number 3. Remember, the Buccaneers couldn't rush on the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number 2. It's not the same players because, you had backups to the backups at this point, but running back Trevor Etienne had a good game for himself. He had, besides he had 3 carries for 26 yards, but most of those came on one single rush, which was of 28 yards. So, besides that 128-yard run, he didn't really produce. Defense, 0 sacks, 1 interception. So they did better on offense, but not too good on defense. Overall, this is a young, promising team. I think they could land, third place in the division. I'll talk more on that later on. Let's go down to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints went 0-2-1. They had the rare tie in the preseason. They also couldn't win a single game. In the regular season last year, they went 5-12, just like the Panthers. This offseason, they fired their head coach, Dennis Allen. They hired former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kellen Moore, to be their new head coach. They had Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. If you go watch his tape from LSU, he was insane out there. He retired before the season, before training camp even began. And also offensive tackle Ryan Ramczyk. He's been having a knee injury. He missed all or most of last season. He's out, and he retired this offseason. They did draft, though, Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. And also they drafted in a second round quarterback Tyler Chuck out of Louisville. He's competing with Spencer Rattler for the quarterback 1 position. So in week number 1, the New Orleans Saints were facing the Chargers. They lost 27-13. Tyler Chuck went 15 for 22, had 165 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Decent game. Quarterback Spencer Rattler went 7 for 11, 53 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 fumble. So both quarterbacks, you could say, kind of struggled a bit. 3 sacks for the defense, 0 interceptions. I think this is going to be a theme for the New Orleans Saints. The defense is probably going to be a bit better than the offense. What's that old saying? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. Week 2, they were facing Liam Cohen and the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was the tie, 17-17 is what the final outcome was. Spencer Rattler went 18 for 24, had 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Tyler Chuck went 9 for 12, 66 yards, 0 touchdowns, but also 0 interceptions. So no touchdowns, but also no turnovers for him. Wide receiver Mason Tipton, he was an undrafted free agent for the Saints last year out of Yale. He had 6 receptions on 8 targets, had 100 yards, had his biggest receiving play of 45 yards. That was, nice for him. He had a good game for himself. Defense had 0 sacks, but they did have 2 interceptions. That was really good to see there for the New Orleans Saints. Week number 3, they faced the Broncos. This was a return for Sean Payton, former head coach of the New Orleans Saints. They lost 28-19. Tyler Chuck and Spencer Rattler played in week number 3 because, again, this is a quarterback battle. Head coach Kellen Moore, he's going to decide at some point this week, I believe, on who's going to be the quarterback 1 for the New Orleans Saints. Either way, you're probably kind of screwed. Quarterback Tyler Chuck went 12 for 20, 102 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 0 interceptions, 1 fumble, had a sack. Bit of a rough stat line there. Spencer Rattler went 5 for 8, 43 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a sack also. The defense looked good. 3 sacks. In terms of sacks and interceptions, 3 sacks and 1 interception. Now let's go on to the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons went 0 for 3 in the preseason last year. In the regular season, they were 8 for 9. They came in second place in the division. Probably going to be their place again this year. Raheem Morris, just like Dave Canales, in his second year with this program. In the offseason, they released veteran defensive lineman Grady Jarrett. He's about 31, 32 years old now. In the draft, they drafted 2 edge rushers. First was Jalen Walker out of Georgia in the first round, and then they traded back into the first round to draft James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, another edge rusher there. They do have some major injuries on the offensive line. Caleb McGarry, who has been their starting offensive tackle, right tackle for quite a bit of time now, he has a leg injury, and also the backup to him is also injured. So they have a pretty big question mark and hole at that right side of the offensive line. Let me read this here from Will Brady. It says, the Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris said that right tackle Caleb McGarry's leg will miss significant time and could be placed on injured reserve after injuring his leg in practice on Wednesday, per ESPN's Mark Ramadi. Atlanta signed McGarry to a 2-year, $30 million extension early this month. He started 92 games across 6 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons. But the thing is, his backup, the backup tackle, Storm Norton, he had an ankle issue. He had ankle surgery. He's likely going to miss 68 weeks also. So, for the right tackle, in most cases, if you have a right-handed quarterback, You could get away with having, your right tackle out for some time. Now, Michael Penix Jr. is a left-handed quarterback like Tua, like Tim Tebow, so his blind side is the right side of the offensive line. So for him, the right tackle is more important than the left tackle. So when you have your starting right tackle out, your backup tackle out too, that's a pretty big hole for him. Michael Penix Jr. talked about him. He did not play this preseason. I don't know why you would not play your young second, year quarterback. He had 3 quarterback starts last year. It's not like he even started the whole year. So, it's a head scratcher there, but, they're going to do what they do. Week number 1, the Falcons were facing the Lions. They lost that game too, 17-10. Spoiler alert, none of the NFC South teams won any preseason games besides the Buccaneers, and preseason games don't matter, but it does show you the depth you have on your team. Week number 1, they lost against the Lions again, 17-10. Dylan Drummond, so he was the best performing wide receiver for them in week number 1. He had 8 receptions, 8 targets for 63 yards. Basically, if you threw it his direction, he was going to catch it. His longest reception was of 25 yards. The defense did pretty decent. They had 3 sacks, 0 interceptions, but 3 sacks. They were able to get to quarterback. Week 2, they faced the Tennessee Titans, who the Buccaneers saw in week number 1 of the preseason. They lost that game. It was a close game, 23-20. Undrafted free agent rookie running back out of Michigan State, Nathan Carter, had a good game for himself. He had 9 carries for 63 yards and a rushing touchdown. His longest carry was a 43 yards, a real big splash play there. Chris Blair, he was a wide receiver. He was the best performing wide receiver for them in week number 2. 3 receptions, 5 targets, 78 yards, a touchdown. His longest reception was a 52 yards. The defense had 1 sack, 1 interception, so a pretty close game for them there, even though Michael Penix Jr. didn't play. And in the final game of the preseason, week number 3 for the Falcons, they faced the Cowboys, lost 31-13. This was a big loss. But again, no Michael Penix Jr., no Bijan Robinson, no Kyle Pitts, no Drake London. So they lost that game. Elijah Dotson, running back, he had a good game for himself, 12 carries for 74 yards. His longest run was a huge run of 41 yards. Wide receiver Nick Cash, he's an undrafted free agent out of San Jose State. He had a good game also, 6 receptions for 9 targets. At 87 yards, his longest receiving play was of 24 yards. On defense, they had only 1 sack, 0 interceptions. So the defense struggled. The offense did pretty good. Didn't produce points, but in terms of yardage, they did good. But the defense really, really struggled. So how do I see the NFC South playing out real quick? The Buccaneers are going to lead the NFC South. They're going to win it again for another year in a row. Second place is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. You're going to have to watch out for the Atlanta Falcons, but they're a young, promising team. But at this point, they don't have the depth. They're not as good as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think anybody can really argue otherwise. If you can, please explain to me why you would think that the Falcons are better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when, Michael Penix Jr., in this case, he has 3 starting, games in his career. He's kind of an unknown at this point. Third place, I have the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that the Buccaneers and other teams in this division are going to have to keep an eye out for, not this year necessarily. I think this year they take a step up, but think about 2-3 years down the line, they have a young team. This is a team they're going to have to keep an eye out for. They're going to cause problems. We'll see the direction, but, if we're projecting from this point now. And in fourth place, the New Orleans Saints are going to come out in 4th. When you have 2 quarterbacks, like I said, you don't have any quarterbacks. Tyler Chuck, Spencer Rattler competing for the quarterback 1 position. Either way you go, I don't think it's going to help you out. It's going to make much of a difference. I think the New Orleans Saints are going to be in contention for the first overall pick this year. So, you have 2 drastic ends. I think the Buccaneers are going to be a Super Bowl contender. I think the New Orleans Saints are going to be, one of the teams that are possibly going to get the first overall selection in next year's draft. So that's what, let's see how the NFC South shakes out, but we're pretty close to seeing how it actually would shake out since we're 2 Sundays away from real football. Let's get to our next headline now. I believe that the 2025 Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a Super Bowl contender. I also believe that the only thing that's going to stop this team from making a deep playoff push from being in the Super Bowl come February is going to be the injury bug. We're not even at week number 1 of the regular season just yet, and the injury bug has already hit this team pretty hard. Think about notable injuries to guys like 4th-round draft pick David Walker at Central Arkansas, who's going to be a big part of this defense behind Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick. Jalen McMillan with his neck injury is going to be out for an extended period of time. Chris Godwin Jr. is still recovering from his ankle injury from last year, the Wirfs injury. All right, so what I want to do here is kind of give you guys my final record prediction with the current state of this team. A lot can change between right now and week number 5, for example. Week number 10, week number 15, you can suffer injuries to major players like Baker Mayfield. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but you never know what can happen. This is a very physical sport. So what I want to do is go week by week and tell you guys, as of right now, how do I think the Buccaneers will match up against this team? Let's start off week number 1. The Buccaneers are on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be a tough NFC South matchup. Again, the Falcons have a lot of young talent on this team. Michael Penix Jr., Kyle Pitts, Drake London. You have Bijan Robinson, Darnell Mooney, wide receiver. He's been suffering from a shoulder injury. He's been kind of week to week. Will he be ready for week number 1? We'll see. No matter what, though, I think the Buccaneers, they're too talented of a team. I know they got swept by the Falcons last year. I think they're too talented of a team to go into Atlanta week number 1 and come out with a loss. So I have the Buccaneers starting off 1-0 to start the season. Week number 2, it's going to be Monday Night Football. The Buccaneers normally don't do good in primetime games, but they're on the road against the Houston Texans. The Texans are a very talented team on both sides of the offense and defense. On offense, C.J. Stroud, of course, Nico Collins. They signed Nick Chubb. They have Joe Mixon. Defense, you have Will Anderson Jr., you have guys like Daniel Hunter. So really talented team overall. This is going to be a very hard matchup, even harder than the week 1 matchup. But I still have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming out somehow with a victory. It's going to be a very close game, but I think they can pull this one out and have that week 2 victory. So the Buccaneers start off 2-0 to start off the season. All right, week number 3, home opener, New York Jets, Justin Fields, Aaron Glenn coming into town. Now, you look at both these rosters. The New York Jets can't even compete, in my opinion. Whether Tristan Wirfs is back for this game or not, I think the Buccaneers are way too talented to lose to the New York Jets in week number 3. Buccaneers start off 3-0. All right, week number 4, you have the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, coming into town. They beat Patrick Mahomes, just like the Buccaneers did in 2020. They beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. They have a lot of talent on this team with one of the best running backs in the league with Saquon Barkley. Now, I'm not too concerned about the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC. I think the Buccaneers, you look back throughout the past few years when Nick Sirianni has been the head coach and Jalen Hurts had been the quarterback, Todd Bowles has found a way to beat this team over time and time again. I don't think it's going to change this time around. I think the Buccaneers start off 4-0 to start off the season. It's going to be a tough matchup. Don't get me wrong. But I think the Buccaneers come out on top there. All right, week number 5, the Buccaneers are going to be all the way across the country in Seattle. This is going to be one of the most beautiful games you've ever seen in your life. Both teams are celebrating their 50th season. Both teams are going to be in their throwback uniforms. The Buccaneers in their white creamsicle uniforms. The Seahawks in their kind of like royal blue uniforms and their, wolf gray helmets. Really nice. Now, they signed Sam Darnold in the offseason to a very similar deal to Baker Mayfield, like 3 years, $100 million, somewhere around that range. Now, this is going to be a tough game too, but still, I don't think at this point in time that the Seahawks are going to be good enough to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I have the Buccaneers starting off 5-0. I know it sounds wild, but it could happen. I have the Buccaneers starting off 5-0. All right, week number 6, you have Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, if he's healthy, coming into Tampa to face the Buccaneers in week number 6. Now, this is where I have the Buccaneers suffering their first loss of the season, so they're going to be 5-1 here. Just like Todd Bowles with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think Kyle Shanahan knows how to beat this Todd Bowles defense. We've seen it in Tom Brady's final year when it was Brock Purdy's NFL debut as a starting quarterback. They blew out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We saw it last year when that was the game when Baker Mayfield was holding off. It was stiff arming Nick Bosa, and he completed the pass for the first down. I believe it was to Rachaad White. But again, Kyle Shanahan kind of just knows how to beat Todd Bowles. So I have the Buccaneers going 5-1 here, having their first loss against the 49ers. So 5-1. All right, so now week 7, the Buccaneers are in Detroit against the Detroit Lions. They've lost a lot of important pieces. They lost their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. They lost the defense coordinator, Aaron Glenn, head coach of the New York Jets now. They lost their veteran starting center who retired this offseason. So they lost quite a bit, but they still have the core nucleus of this team. That's going to be a Monday Night Football game too. They still have Dan Campbell. They still have Jared Goff. They still have Jahmyr Gibbs. They still have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They still have Sam Laporta. They still have the core nucleus of this team. So I don't see this being like a give-me game, like a game that the Buccaneers can easily win. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Buccaneers. I think the Lions are still going to be a playoff team this year. I know a lot of guys are going against them to make the playoffs, but I still think that they're going to be a tough team to beat. But I think the Buccaneers win this game, go 6-1. All right, week number 8. The Buccaneers are in New Orleans. This is an NFC South division rival game. Now, I don't think that the New Orleans Saints are going to do good at all this year. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But even though a team can be one of the worst teams in the league, when they go up against you and when you have those division matchups, it could go either way. I think the Buccaneers are going to end up splitting the series between the New Orleans Saints. They could win this one or win the next one, but I think they split the series, go 1-1. So week number 8, I have the Buccaneers losing on the road in New Orleans against the New Orleans Saints. So I have the Buccaneers going 6-2 entering the bye week. So Buccaneers are 6-2 entering the bye week. All right. Post-bye week, week number 10, Drake May, Carlton Davis, Stephon Diggs. They're coming into Tampa. Drake May had some promising moments as a young quarterback, last year, but I don't think they're talented enough. When you go, position by position, I don't think they're talented enough, even close to being able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers go 7-2 to start off the season. All right. So week number 11 and week number 12, I have back-to-back losses for the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers will be 7-4 now. So week number 11, Josh Allen, the reigning MVP. Buffalo Bills come in to, Buccaneers are going to be on the road for both of these games. So, I think this is going to be a really close game. It can go kind of either way, but I think the Buffalo Bills are going to have the edge over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Week 12, this is an issue, just like with Kyle Shanahan. Sean McVay knows how to beat this Todd Bowles defense. We saw that even in 2021, the year after the Super Bowl in the playoffs. So do you remember the play where Matthew Stafford hits, Cooper Kupp deep to, and Antoine Winfield's in coverage. Todd Bowles blitz in, and that ended the Buccaneers, their playoff push. The Rams went on to win the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 56 against the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. So, Sean McVay, historically, the Rams have always kind of known how to beat the Buccaneers, at least in contemporary history, so this is now the Buccaneers are 7-4. All right, week 13, the Buccaneers are home against the Arizona Cardinals. This is a win. Buccaneers are 8-4 now. Week 14, New Orleans Saints come into town. Buccaneers are 9-4. I have them now. I had that win in that game. Atlanta Falcons. Now the Buccaneers win the week 1 matchup. I think they split the series. They lose the week 15 matchup. The Buccaneers are now, what did that mean? 9-5. All right, so week 16, they're on the road against the Carolina Panthers. I think they win this game. Again, the Panthers are a young, promising team, but I don't think they're going to do too good this year. I think they're going to come in 3rd place, but they're not going to be, competing for the NFC South title. Buccaneers are now 10-5. Week 17 in Miami, pretty short drive or a flight, whichever they decide to do. Is Tua going to be healthy at this time? What's going on with Tyreek Hill? What's going on with the state of the team? I think the Buccaneers win this game no matter what. So the Buccaneers are now 11-5. And then week 18, again, the Carolina Panthers, this time at home. I have the Buccaneers winning that one too. So I have the Buccaneers overall going 12-5. This is going to be a very talented team. Again, this is a playoff, definitely a playoff team. This is a Super Bowl contender, though, however. But again, it's going to come down to injuries. Can the Buccaneers stay healthy throughout the season? The injury bug's hitting them pretty hard early on. Can the Buccaneers continue to stay healthy or try to stay healthy, in really important positions? You don't want a certain position. Like, imagine if the offensive line starts getting hit by the injury bug. Who's going to protect Baker Mayfield out there? So, if the Buccaneers can avoid the injury bug moving forward, if they can try to get their guys back, keep their guys healthy, you can't avoid these types of things. But I think the injury bug is going to be the most important thing to the Buccaneers this season. They have a lot of depth, but the next man up mentality, that can only take you so far. There is going to be a drop off between the starter and the backup. For example, if Yaya Diaby or Hassan Reddick goes down, there's going to be a definite drop off between Yaya Diaby or Hassan Reddick and Chris Braswell, for example. So Can the Buccaneers stay healthy? We will see, but I have the Buccaneers going 12-5, winning the NFC South. Bucs fans, thank you guys again for watching this video. If you guys haven't done so already, please hit the like and the subscribe button. It just continues to help out the algorithm and boost this content out to more Buccaneers fans just like yourself. Also, drop down your bold predictions for some of the young Buccaneers players on this team and how you expect them to do in 2025. For example, how do you expect Emeka Buka, the first overall selection, to do at wide receiver? What do you think his stat line is going to look like this year? What do you think at the total opposite end of the draft? What do you think about 7th round pick Tez Johnson? How do you think he's going to do in the return game, but also on offense? So drop down your bold predictions, not just for the young players, but any player, whoever your favorite Buccaneers player is, you can drop down those bold predictions below. Let me know how they're going to do this season. Also, guys, I just want to send a big thank you to all the supporters. This is now 12 weeks of me doing this show, and it's already, giving me opportunities that I couldn't have envisioned before. So I truly appreciate all your support and all your continued support. If you guys want, you can go follow me over on X and Instagram at DanielM_TB. Next week, we have a show covering, a deep dive into the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week 1 of the regular season. We're finally there, guys. Thank you guys again for all your support. I'm your host, Daniel Morales, signing out. Bye-bye.